So, when you're watching a romantic movie and the two main characters have come to a head and it's the climax of the movie and they're about to say to each other, I will run through the fire, the wind, the storm, through pain to get to you. I mean, it's in the moment, it's always so like, precious. But when I watch it back, it's so funny. But, anyways, point is, it's always so beautiful to watch. And it's just a declaration of love. And when it comes to weddings, that declaration is in your vows, your marriage vows. So, hey, Bridie, I'm Dorothy. Welcome back to the Complete Brides. Today, we're going to be talking about how to write your vows. Essentially, the vows are the outward expression of the covenant or commitment that was made in marriage, right? Fun fact, the wedding vows that we recite today were actually written in 1549 by Thomas Cranmer, the Archbishop of Canterbury. You know, the one that goes, I take thee to be my wedded husband, to love and to hold, in sickness and in health, all that stuff. Yeah, started in 1549. Well, these days, couples try to be a little more creative and they could either decide to write their own vows, say the original standard vows, or do a combination of both. So let's get into how to write your own vows. Number one, research, and research early. All right. When you want to start writing your vows, it's always a good place to watch other people's declarations or movies that you've liked where there is a declaration of love to get inspired, right? You can also reflect on, your story, the first time you met, the way your relationship has been, maybe the point when he fell in love or when he said he loved you, all those kind of things. That's the first place to start. Research and also take notes of all these, unique stories to you in particular. All right. Now, please, do not use ChatGPT to write your vows. I'm looking at you. Don't use ChatGPT to write your vows. All of us, we know. We will know. Okay. Number two, think about the structure. Okay. So technically, when we talk about writing your vows, it is kind of like a speech, right? And if we just follow standard speech structure, it's a good place to sort of plan out how you're going to say your vows. With every speech, there's an introduction, there's a body, and there's a conclusion. So we're just going to go through the different ways you can personalize those different portions to make it your own. Okay? Your introduction or your opening statement is meant to set the tone and capture your partner's attention as well as the audience. So it's always great to acknowledge where you are. So for example, you can start with something like, from the moment I first saw you at that little cafe right by the university parking lot, I knew that my life was about to change forever. And standing here today, I can only thank God that those dreams have become a reality. So do you see how, she started talking about, where they first met. You're painting a picture, you're setting the tone, and then you now brought it back to where we are today. So those words will capture the attention of the audience because you've also sort of brought in a little bit of a story to point out how you guys met. So that's just the introduction. Okay, the next part is the body. It's the main message and the core of your vows. And we can split it into about three main parts. The first portion is the connection. Then there's the core message, which is where you would actually have your vows, like the promises. We'll get there. And then finally, the vision of the future. So for the connection part, you can share like a personal story or something you both like. For example, like a song or lyrics to a song. I know I heard one where someone used lyrics from a song and kind of personalized it to her husband. I was like, oh, you like this or you do this and all of that, right? So that portion is like to really show your connection and show your your bond, really, right? You can also highlight your life before you met him and how he changed that, right? And the purpose of all this, or the connection, is to highlight a quality that reflects your relationship. I remember my friend saying something during her own vows, and she said, "I love the way that you love me." And whew, that was just like, it was such a perfect line. Yeah, so things like that, you're trying to show the connection between both of you. So we're in the second portion of the body, right? So like we said, there's the connection, and now there's the core message. This is where you're going to say your actual vows and promises. Now for this portion, it's always great to use speech techniques. You can use repetition, which is like, I promise to ABC, I promise to DEF, I promise to XYZ, right? So you're following that structure of repetition. That's repeating the first portion of the same, like repeating the first statements over and over again with different endings to highlight what your actual vows are. That's repetition. Then there's also parallel structure, which is, if this happens, this is what I'll do. If this happens, this is what I'll do. So for example, in times of joy, I'll celebrate you. In times of sorrow, I'll comfort you. So you're pretty much saying A, B, A, B, and they're usually related. In that same vein, there's also the contrast structure, which is still a relationship, but is more of a contrast. So for example, you can say, I won't always have the right words to say to you, but I will always listen. So we're contrasting speaking and listening. You can also say something like, I may never give you $1 million, but you always have my heart, right? So you're also contrasting like giving and having. Do you understand? So that's where the contrast structure works. So like I said, there are 3 different speech patterns you can follow. You can follow the repetition, which is like, I promise, I promise, I promise. You can follow the parallel structure, A versus B, or you can follow the contrast structure, which is like A versus Z. So like I said before, the body of your vows has 3 portions: the connection, the core message, and the vision. Now we've spoken about the connection and the core message, which leaves us with the vision. So this portion, you're just going to be talking about, where you see yourself in the future. You can, project, say, 10, 20, 50 years into your future. And you can use a line like, say, I'll keep loving you till my hair turns gray, through every sunrise or every rising day, something like that, right? So you're trying to point out that this love is not just now, it's going to be forever, right? So that's the body. And finally, the concluding part, you're just going to tie everything together and just bring everybody back to where we are and say, you're just going to talk about like, I'm happy for where we are and I can't wait for what this life is going to bring, something like that, right? So I would give you an example, but let's try this. You guys write a possible concluding statement that you would for your own vows, and let's see who can come up with the most romantic statement to end. All right, I'll be counting on you. I'm rooting for you. So that brings us to the end of how to write your vows. Some additional tips once you're done, drafting these vows, from the introduction to the body and to the conclusion. Make sure you practice in front of a mirror. Record yourself, listen. You want to make sure that you do it well and that your emotions are properly conveyed in this message. Finally, pace yourself. Okay, it's a very different vibe. For example, let's try this sentence: you're my everything and I'm so honored to be your wife. That's the first one. Second one: you're my everything and I am so honored to be your wife. What's the difference? Do you feel like one is a lot more intentional because there's pacing? Do you understand? So pace yourself, take time, let it sound like a conversation, not like, a speech. You want people to sound like you're just speaking, not like you wrote a thesis, okay? And most importantly, have fun. You can't write a bad vow. It's your vow. So the most important thing is to make sure that you share how you feel with your spouse. Okay? So with that, we've come to the end of this episode. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Till next time, happy planning.